Once we reached the army fort, the buses stopped in a field and we all got out. About 180 of us, poor victims. We were lined up and stood in a field. There we were taken to a place where we had to take off our clothes and be deloused with some sort of insect spray. We then put our clothes back on and sent to the barber shop where all of our hair was cut off. There was a lot of joking going on. One barber asked a guy if he wanted to keep his sideburns, and if he did, he should hold out his hand. We all looked at one another's lumpy heads once we had been scalped. Some guys had really weird bumpy heads, all kinds of shapes of heads. Next we got into a line and were given army clothes, hats and boots. Then to a room to take off our clothes and put them in a bag to send them home, and then into a shower room to take a shower, and then we put our army clothes on. Most clothes fit, but some didn't. Then we got about 6 different shots and vaccinations for different diseases. Not fun. Then we were sent to huge kitchens to clean pots, pans, silverware and dishes for about 8 hours. By that time we knew we were in the army, and none of us liked it so far. Tired and go, hurry all the time. Eventually, we were walked to our barracks, which were new brick buildings 2 stories high. Each room had, I think, 6 bunks. We got a little sleep and were sent out on what was called details early the next morning. Mine was to clean some offices with mops and brooms. I felt very sick and had a bad fever. I curled up in a fetal position under a table. I felt like I was dying. An officer came around and saw me and thought I was faking. I told him I wish I was. He sent for a medic, and the medic took me to the hospital. I think they called a dispensary. I had an extremely high fever, probably due to 1 or more of the vaccinations. I was in there on a bed for 3 days. I never had been so sick. Anyway, the fever broke and I went back to my company barracks. The guys said that I didn't miss much, just a lot of marching and exercises. We did more of both for the next 2 weeks. My muscles were very sore for most of the time.
Sundays we had to wash our own clothes. I never washed my own clothes before. My wonderful mother always did that for my father and all us kids. The laundry room was big with a lot of washers and dryers in it, and had machines that dispensed bleach and soap in little cartons. It was a bit of a mystery for me. I didn't know that bleach wasn't soap, so I bought bleach and put that in the washing machine and put my white army issue underwear along with my green fatigues in the same machine with only bleach in it. Well, my fatigues came out a little faded and my underwear came out a light green. My only clothes. We had an underwear inspection outside in formation the next morning so that the sergeant drill instructors could check if everyone washed their clothes. So out of about 180 guys, I was the only one who was wearing light green underwear. I got the eyes all right and smiles. One of the drill instructors came up to me very serious and asked me, "And what makes you so different, trooper?" "Well, Sergeant, I put bleach instead of soap in the washing machine with all my clothes in it." "How interesting," he said, and then started to laugh, as did all the 180 guys standing out there. It was a delightfully light moment in our basic training. Even though the joke was on me, I laughed along. I became somewhat famous with the guys, totally by accident. Anyway, I went through the entire basic training with light green underwear and sort of faded fatigues. No one ridiculed me, which showed just how much the guys in training respected each other. We were all brothers after 2 weeks of basic training. Quite a few of the guys in basic did not know how to read or write. The army was not concerned about small stuff. As long as you could hear, see, walk and shoot a rifle, it was all that was necessary. One overweight fellow with red hair could not keep up with all the marching. It was August and hot in Missouri at the time, humid and near 100 degrees. He tried and tried his best. We all felt sorry for him and tried to help him when we could. The drill inspectors harassed the poor kid, trying to get the weight off of him through sweating probably. It was not enough apparently because he didn't finish basic training. It was too hot for everyone that summer. We had an ambulance behind us as we marched fully dressed with helmets and web gear on. Guys used to just faint and keel over on our marches. It was crazy. Actually, later on during a 10-mile double-time march up and down hills, 2 guys keeled over and died. Someone called their senator about that and said the army were killing these poor kids in training, and they were.
I wrote a letter to my dad and said that he was right. I did not like the army at all. I realized we were more like victims than appreciated soldiers. He said that if I fought basic training that I would be miserable. If I tried to do my best at everything during training that things would go better psychologically for me. He didn't say psychologically, but I knew what he meant. I had to change my attitude at least about the training. Speaking of psychology, some of the drill instructors kept telling us that the gooks were going to come to our country and rape all our sweethearts, wives, mothers, and sisters, and then kill everyone if we did not fight them. They said killing communists was like killing animals. The Vietnamese soldiers were like animals. About 10 guys out of 100 believed this slop. I thought it was demeaning to all of us that the army would think that we would believe this propaganda. Then we found out that none of the drill instructors ever went to Vietnam or were in combat. At that point, I lost my admiration for any of them. I really didn't have much admiration for them to begin with. This all came about when we were issued our M14 rifles and were learning how to take them apart and put them back together. There was a corporal that had a combat infantryman badge on his utilities assigned to our company to help us train with our newly acquired rifle and handgun, a Colt .45 caliber automatic. While he was helping us with taking apart the weapons and putting them back together, he answered our questions of what Vietnam was really like. He said the drill instructors were trained to spread the same old BS that he listened to when he was in basic training. He claimed that many of the drill instructors actually went to DI school to avoid combat in Vietnam, and he said that many of us, if sent to Vietnam, would be killed. That stunned the heck out of us. This is the first guy who talked to us that actually fought as a combat infantryman in Vietnam. We listened to every word he had to say. Finally, the truth. He actually had to speak to us on the sly, as the army commanders would not like him spreading the truth of what may await us. Many friends he made in Vietnam were killed. He figured that at least half the company of about 120 guys were either killed or wounded during their one-year tour. 50%. He was sad when he talked about Vietnam. He said the country was beautiful and that the Vietnamese were good people, and it was a shame that a war was going on there. He said if we could, we should avoid going to Vietnam, and to certainly avoid being in the infantry or on helicopters, as those were the guys getting killed over there. Well, most of us, probably 80%, were drafted and had no choice in what the next training would be in. As it turned out, after basic, that most were going to infantry training at Fort Polk, Louisiana. The corporal was a very nice and low-key guy, but we could tell he was sad. So the math wizards of the battalion figured out that after basic, that out of 180 of us, and 80% going to Vietnam as infantry, that 72 of us would be killed or wounded in Vietnam. Sad indeed.